Today we're going to talk about short stories and literary devices used in short stories. We'll focus on plot and point of view. So your objective today is to review a plot map and different types of point of view in a story. So let's stop for a minute and talk about what is a literary device. So a literary device is either a literary element or a literary structure found in fictional writing. Readers can analyze literary devices to develop a deeper understanding of the text. So if you understand some of the tricks and techniques the author uses, then you will better understand the text. So literary devices and fictions, short stories will have these elements. They'll have characters, a setting, a plot, usually some type of conflict. They have a point of view, motif, theme, a mood, and tone. And we'll talk about as we go what each of these means. So we're going to start with plot. Plot is just the events that make up a storyline. Sometimes you'll hear it called plot map or a plot diagram or a plot mountain, but it always has these elements: an exposition, an inciting incident, and that's usually found inside the exposition, a rising action, climax, falling action, and conclusion. So first, the plot is just the events that make up a storyline. So the exposition, the first part of the plot, introduces background information about events, settings, characters, and it kind of gives you what you need to start the story. So background might be what's going on at the time. Setting can be where and when. You'll introduce some of the characters, not all of them, and maybe the setting is just the initial setting for the story. The inciting incident comes at the end of the exposition, and it's the event that sets the central conflict in motion, kind of gets the ball rolling for the whole story. It's what starts the plot happening. The rising action is happening. So here's the exposition. Our inciting incident will happen right here. Rising action is a series of incidents or events in a literary plot that build toward the point of greatest interest. So that's going to happen here. So we think of this like a roller coaster. That first hill, you're kind of chugging up very slowly, and you have that anticipation. The climax then is going to happen at the top of that plot map or that mountain, and it's the point in a narrative where the conflict or tension hits its highest point. It isn't always right in the middle of the story. It might be more toward the end, but it's going to be that point where usually the main character goes through some sort of change. Then falling action starts after the climax. It's kind of after you go chug up that roller coaster, that first hill, and you drop off that first hill. That first hill, the peak of it's the most exciting point. And now the falling action. It's the part of the plot that occurs after the climax has been reached. It leads to the conflict being resolved. So the falling action is usually a series of events that happen that lead to this last part, our conclusion or resolution. And that last part, you'll see it called conclusion or the resolution, is what you also hear it called. The conclusion of the story where the conflict is fully resolved. And that happens at the very end. You may, if it's a series of books or a series of short stories that link together, there may be a little cliffhanger here to get you to read the next book, but it still resolves what happened in that part of the story. The point of view comes next. Okay, point of view is the narrator's position in relation to the story being told. So, for example, is that narrator inside the story or outside? So there are a couple of different kinds, first, second, or third person. And then third person has a couple of different types of third person. But for us, we're going to focus on first person. The narrator is in the story. It's usually the main character telling the story. You might hear things like, I woke up that morning and wanted to buy some ice cream. You'll know what that main character is thinking and feeling. You'll see words like I, my. Just because you see those words doesn't always mean it's first person, but that can be a clue. The next type is third person. The narrator is an outsider telling the story. So you might see things like, he woke up that morning and wanted to buy some ice cream. That's third person. So there are two different types of third person point of view. There's limited point of view and omniscient point of view. Limited, in both of them, the narrator's outside the story because that's what third person means. In limited, the narrator's outside the story and has limited knowledge about the characters. He only knows the thoughts and feelings of one character, and it's usually the main character. Now, omniscient, third person omniscient point of view, the narrator's still outside the story, but he knows everything. The outside narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of all of the characters. It's almost, we call it like omniscient means all knowing. It's almost like sort of a god looking down on the story. And that is a review of plot and point of view.